Hi there, this is Dan with Layered Wisdom. Today, I want to take you on a journey, again, from idea to finished product, starting with something that I think is a practical thing for those of us that are dog lovers. Hey there, so recently I came across this ad on Facebook for this deal where you can wash your dog's paws. And I looked at this and I thought, this looks very familiar. So I went back and did a little searching, and sure enough, here is a model that I found on MakerWorld. And as you can see, it actually has three parts. It's got the outside cylinder and a cover for it. And then it's got this internal mat, which if you take a close look at it, has got all these little pokey things on it. And the way that this thing works then is you take and you put that inside of the cylinder here and cover it up with the cover. And then what you can do is you take your dog and you can put their paw in, fill this up with like warm soapy water and put their paw in, and they just kind of wash their paw off. And then when that's done, you can just pour the water out and maybe rinse it out. So what I did, being as that I've got three printers, I went ahead and printed the outside shell on my Elegoo, probably because it does better on a Core XY when you've got a tall object like that. I printed the cover part on my Bambu, and for both of these I used Bambu matte PLA. And then I went to print the inside liner on my Snapmaker. That's where I ran into a little bit of a problem. Now, the fun part, though, came with trying to figure out how was I going to print this TPU insert. Well, I had several choices. And the first thing that I went to is I went to my Bambu and I pulled up this filament, this nice bright green one, which is actually something called TPU for AMS. Now, the nice thing about TPU for AMS is that, as the name implies, you can put it onto your AMS unit. So I could put it onto the AMS spool and I could load it onto the printer and I can print this out, which, by the way, took about 7-8 hours to print out. The problem, however, is that in order for that TPU to be able to be used on an AMS, it's got to be stiffer and more, it's got to be harder than the regular TPU that we would use. So the TPU for AMS, unfortunately, while it worked out nice and it would make itself a nice little round tube here, the bristles are very hard and they just simply break off as soon as you touch them. So this particular filament was not going to work. So the next thing I did was I looked and I said, well, I don't really want to mess with my Bambu to try and get TPU running on it. And the reason why is that I would have to actually disconnect the part that the AMS goes into, put a separate feed tube on, and manually feed in the filament there. And I thought, that was just a little bit too much work. Not something that I wanted to do. So then I went over here to my Centauri carbon, and I took a look at that. And again, the problem I have here is that TPU filament is really flimsy. It's really difficult to push at all into anything. And it couldn't get it through this part right here, which is the sensor that tells you when you run out of filament. By the way, it also tells you when your filament stops, but that's a story for another day. So finally, I went over here to my Snapmaker, and I took and loaded up the white Bambu filament onto the Snapmaker and started to load it in. Now, because the Snapmaker doesn't recognize Bambu Filament. I had to go in and pick one that was close, so I just went ahead and decided to use generic and then TPU 95A high flow, which is what this is in white. Okay, how's that expression go? Now we're cooking with gas. Oh, I think we're printing. All right, we'll be back. Now, it started to work just fine, but after only a couple of minutes, I kept getting errors. It would say printhead anomaly, and then right back to the same thing. So I'm not really sure what is going on, other than I think that the Bambu filament is just too flimsy to be able to print this correctly. Well, then I had to sit there and go, well, I just put some black TPU on here and it worked just fine. So I went back to my stack of filaments and I looked through, and sure enough, there was my Elegoo Rapid TPU 95A. Ran that onto the printer, started up the print, and there you go. 9 hours later, and I have this very nice, flexible little insert where the little pokey things on it don't break. They bend very nicely, and it'll work just great to be able to wash my dog's paws. Now, the end result of all of this is that this might be just a little bit too big for my dog, but if that's the case, I'll give it to my son, who's got a big lab, and I'll just scale it down a little bit on the printer and have myself a new washer. So there you go, from start to finish, a practical print. I hope you enjoyed this series. Please give a like and subscribe to my channel for more helpful hints here on Layered Wisdom. See you next time.